This video is sponsored by PCBWay. So I was tidying up the place last weekend and I was looking at this coat hanger in my new apartment, and I don't really like the look of it. Like, everything is just bulging out of it and everything is neatly organized, but it just doesn't look organized at all. And so I had this idea in my head, like if we would visually make this enclosed, it would look a lot better. So what I mean by more enclosed is that it's in this cube of sorts, and the cube is open, but just because of the visual cue that everything around it is straight, it looks more organized. All of the coats will be inside of this cube and the backpack as well. So I started by measuring up everything to see what was possible, and I already had a rough idea in my head of what I wanted it to look like, using the same metal tubing as the rest of the apartment as well, 25 by 25 millimeters and 1.5 millimeters thick. These come with these clamps that you can use to connect everything together. As I'll be 3D printing some custom mounting solutions for this, I thought I'd start off in the CAD right away. I first created a frame over here, and then I modeled out some of the corner pieces, which we won't be 3D printing, but it's just nice to have it there visually. If you would like access to the designs, then you can check out my Patreon page. I'll leave everything over there and you can download this one as well. After this, I started modeling out the rough dimensions of my backpack, as I want a place for this as well. That's usually the item that is just, roaming around the apartment on chairs on the ground somewhere in the kitchen, for example, so I'd like a nice space for this one. In terms of the bag that I'm using, it's the Boundary Supply Errand Pack, and I've had this one for a number of years, and it's one of the best backpacks I've ever had, so definitely recommend it. Check them out. I'll leave a link in the description down below as well. So I went to the hardware store and I bought 4 of these 1 meter metal tubes, and I had to cut these down to 80 centimeters. That's because of the area that we have available, and that also allows us to use the excess pieces for the connecting bit to the wall. I think if we'd go for the proper theme in this apartment, I'd paint all of these pieces black. At the moment though, I just left them the steel color that they are. As for the connecting pieces, these are the ones that will be mounted onto the wall, and that means we have the corner pieces as well, where the excess metal tubes will stick into. So bolting all of this stuff into place is super easy. I have been wanting to get into welding for some time now as well, like just to learn a new skill, and I think the entire build would have been a lot cleaner if I welded all these pieces together. And there's also been a lot of new innovations in that regard with laser welding, for example. I saw that metal fab from Xtool a little while ago, and that just seems so cool, so easy to weld stuff together, but I am really curious to see how strong that actually is. So once everything was bolted into place, we were left with this frame. It is a little bit crooked, but as soon as we bolt this into the wall, we'll straighten out a little bit. After removing the original coat hanger, I used a sit-stand desk to hold the frame in place, and that way we could mark out where we needed to drill the holes. And after marking out those holes, I did use a laser level to check out if the crookedness of the frame didn't impact where I marked out the holes. At first I didn't really realise that this was a concrete wall, but I quite enjoyed that it was, because this way we can drill in some holes and put some anchor bolts in there, and anchor bolts are a lot stronger than stuff I'd usually use. So this entire frame is on there really solid, and it can hold a ton of weight. So once it was all together, I really liked that all the coats were exactly the right size to fit inside of this thing, and it's above the central heating, so if you've been outside in the rain, then the coats will dry out really nicely. Now, because this will hold a lot of weight, I wanted to put an extra bar over the top of it instead of in between there, so that it can also hold the coats and the backpack, and the backpack can be quite heavy sometimes, like 12 kilograms. I wanted to make some 3D printed components for this one so that it holds it in place nicely, but it doesn't have to hold all of the weight. I took to the CAD and I sketched out a rectangle and then a mount for the tube, extruded all of these layers and sent it off to the X1C to be 3D printed in ABS. So if you don't have a 3D printer or you'd like to manufacture these parts in a lot higher quality, you could definitely check out today's sponsor, PCBWay. PCBWay offers a lot of manufacturing services ranging from PCB production and assembly, CNC machining, sheet metal fabrication, injection molding, and of course also 3D printing. But they do this with a lot higher quality materials as well, so if you want a 3D printer thinking in metal or titanium, you could do that as well. PCBWay actually has a Christmas sale going on right now, so you can save some on your order. I'll also leave some links in the description down below to the project page, and in that way you can download all of the STL files if you want to. So special thanks to PCBWay for sponsoring this video. So these 3D printed parts were a little bit of a tight fit, but eventually after some force we got those on there quite nicely. Now on here we'll be mounting that tube, and after that we'll also be mounting a vertical tube that holds the project panel. And the project panel is basically a Gridfinity grid which has metal sheets in there, and magnetically attaches Gridfinity stuff. Right, so initially I wanted this to be a full-size one, just like the other ones with these 500mm by 250mm sheets, but I don't have enough space on the rack itself. I want to cut these in half and just make it a single Gridfinity grid panel. So initially I didn't really want to use an angle grinder to do this because it's very difficult to, cut in a straight line. But eventually it turned out quite nicely. I had to go past it with a sanding machine to get rid of the edges over there. And after this I started marking out the holes with this little template so that we know where we need to drill the holes to mount the corner pieces onto. Now we also need to drill some holes for the base mount connection, which initially was for mounting it onto monitor arms, but I still really like the idea of a base mount connection so that we can add an extra plate at the back and then somehow mount that to the tubes that we have in place. Now I modeled out all of these components in a prior video called the Project Panel V2, so if you want to know how I came up with this design, then definitely check that out. But this is basically exactly the same, so I'm just 3D printing all the components. So if you're enjoying this video so far, then definitely consider leaving it a like, leaving a comment, or subscribing to the channel. Really helps me out, really helps the channel out, and all of the proceeds that come from the channel go directly back into the channel. This is the best hobby and best job in the world. I really appreciate all of the support on the recent videos, so thank you. So also let me know if there's any machines that you'd really like the channel to go more towards, because most of my channel focuses somewhat on laser cutting and 3D printing, but there's a lot of other stuff out there as well, which is really interesting. Recently received a CNC machine, and that was also a really awesome little project. I'm most at home with 3D printing. It's easy, it's fun to do, and it's really fast as well, so let me know in the comments. After 3D printing the grid, I use these little corner pieces to screw it onto the grid, and that holds it in place. As for how we'll be mounting this onto the tube itself, I 3D printed a base mount to tube clamp connection, and that way we could just mount it onto that base mount, and if we ever want to remove it to put it on a different setup, for example, it's still there. Just clamp this into place with some M5 bolts. Now at the bottom of that vertical tube, I'd like to make a little hook so that we can mount the backpack onto that. And this is because that panel is just the right size to be mounted above the backpack. I went back into the CAD and I modeled out a tube clamp which is held in place with 2 little bolts, and added a hook to that as well. And I 3D printed that on the Bambu X1C in carbon fiber. So I've been getting more and more into the reinforced carbon fiber filaments, and I really enjoy the texture that I have as well. I made sure to 3D print it so that the layer lines are distributing the weight really nicely. After marking out where those holes are placed, I removed the 3D printed part and took it to the drill press. This allows us to put 2 of these bolts into it, and that's what's holding it in place. So alongside this, I'd also like to make some hooks that hold the coats in place, and I just reutilized the design, but then made them fit around the tube itself. And I 3D printed these with reinforced carbon fiber filaments as well. I possibly gave these a little bit too much leeway because they're on there quite loose, and I'm a little bit afraid that as soon as you want to hang a coat on there, then they'll flip backwards and be very difficult to utilize. I still had some Gridfinity inserts laying around, so I just reutilized those designs, modified them a little bit so they work for more vertical orientation, and I'll be upgrading these along the way when I have more stuff to put inside of these things. At the back of these I put some 10mm magnets, usually glue these in place so they don't snap off when you remove the basket from the Gridfinity system. So if you have any ideas for what to put on this Gridfinity system, then also let me know in the comment section. I was personally thinking of putting some flashlights on there, key hanger, and I have these 2 little buckets over there right now. One of them is not big enough for my custom sunglasses, but they should fit, normal sunglasses. And the top one is great for storing my keys. In general, I think it was quite a successful project, even though it looks really industrial and really rough. It does feel a lot more contained somehow, because it's, around all of the mess. So somehow that feels more organized, and I finally also have a place to put my backpack, which is really great. That thing's been sitting on the floor in a corner somewhere for the longest time now, so I'm quite chuffed with this one. I hope you enjoyed it as well. I hope it gave you some inspiration, and hopefully see you in the next episode.